So as mentioned in my ATR video, I also had this hydraulic arm edge to build, and now we're going to finally get around to it. And again, as I've already pointed out, I had that OWI ATR that we built earlier, and then a few years back we have the Robotic Arm Edge, which is the motorized equivalent of this one. This one here uses the concept of hydraulic and fluid dynamics to operate the arm, mainly using water. So we'll see how that works. So we've got our manual here with all our guides to go through. And just like with the ATR, we're going to need a small Phillips screwdriver and some cutters to cut the plastic parts out. So then we get this box out of the way and pull the parts out. We'll look at them. Let's see. Here's one bag of all our plastic parts. These are all our hydraulic rams that we got to assemble and fill up. We'll get around to that. And this is all our base plates. Here's some screw hardware. The other thing is this is also an oil packet. That's probably for lubricating the rams to work without sticking. And speaking of that, here's our hydraulic line that connects those. And then we have some more plastic. That's all there is in the box. Oh, and one more. And we've got weights. These are metallic weights. Since we don't have the weight of batteries to keep the base stationary, we have to use some actual weights inside it to keep it in place. It's also got a suction cup that it uses as well. But we'll see how that works. So let's start opening these up. Start building. Individual detail of each of these here is we have our plastic sheets. So we have 1, 2, 3. This is the base, or the base parts. We have this one, this white one here, and this other white one, which is also part of the base. Now the whole control mechanism is already pre-molded for you. This is where all your hydraulic controls go. So you don't have to really assemble too much of this. It's just putting the components in there. So this is already molded for you. Now again, we have our oil packet for lubing up those hydraulic components. Caps. Springs. I got one of each of these of different sizes, and then several of the small ones. Our long and short Phillips head screws. And we have these sticky pads and what they call brake parts, or brake pads. And as I showed you earlier, we have these weights for the base that it's in there. And then I decided to keep these in the bag, our hydraulic lines in rams. So let's look in here and see what we have to start with first. Okay, we start with the gripper unit assembly, followed by the stand and control base. Let's see. Well, there's our grippers completed. Just like that. A pad articulates, and then these clip on, like so. So that's our 2 grippers done. Now I gotta work on the stand and control base assembly. And now we have the stand and control base assembly completed. This part attaches onto that base that I showed you earlier, and it fastens in. And you see it's got a worm gear drive for turning the arm back and forth. And we got our sticky pads, and as you can see, our weights go in the back there. And then we have kind of a fold down handle for later on. And of course this is what operates that worm gear drive. So that's the standard control base. Now I gotta work on the main body assembly. Do a little quick snapshot of the parts so far on our main assembly. We have our wrist here. Here's our forearm. Here's up and down. And then here's our main arm on this section here. And this is gonna go right into here. So just wanted to show this quick bit before we get too far. And looking at this when it's assembled, a gear goes down in there, and it's a screw, and that's what attaches to your worm gear. And because it's a worm gear, this arm can't be forced to move this way. The only way the arm can move is with this. So that's how that portion goes together and how that's supposed to work. Now, what we're going to be working on is building the cylinders. We're going to be putting the hydraulic cylinders together, so that's going to be an interesting bit. So now we're going to focus on getting these tubes and cylinders all assembled. But first, I need to put the oil in our collection bin here and have it ready for oiling the insides of all these cylinders while we're assembling them. Snips. And again, we're getting into the messy bit of assembly because this is where you have to deal with water getting the cylinders and lines filled, and then you gotta have this oil to lubricate them. There comes the oil. It's a clear oil. And again, in the instructions they tell you to have tissue paper laid down. I'm just using regular tissues for this for the time being. It'll work just as well for collecting any spillage. So our oil is down in there. There's our oil. And when you apply it, you rake it off because you want glove on there like that. You don't want it dripping oil. So the oil's ready. So let's start cutting these and assembling them. And here is the H0 cylinder completed. Put oil around there so that you get smooth action in here. And you take your rod and you've got these little rubber pieces, and you make sure that they're fully on there where you put them in. So that's how that one works. So we're going to do the same thing with the next ones of these. Get them all assembled. And now we've completed the H1 cylinder. Goes in and out like that. It's got this pivoting point. And do the next one. Taking a look at I1 and I2. Oops. Fell on my hand. That's all been assembled. Now we're looking on the last three cylinders, I3, I4, and I5. We have now completed all our cylinders and all our plungers. They all work. So the next step is going to be cutting the lengths of tubing and then filling the cylinders up with water, which can be the other messy bit. Now I thought about using actual hydraulic fluid, but since other people are going to be building this, I figure I better use water because that's what they're going to be using based on the manual. So let's start working on that bit. Alright, gonna start with tube 5, cylinder number 5. Get this filled. Then we're going to work with the line and get it filled with I5. Make sure there's movement. Do this a couple times. See that cylinder's filled. Now we need to use tube number 5, which is the very top one that I've got here. Should be 53 centimeters. And again, as I say, this is the messy bit, because water can get sprayed everywhere and whatnot. Sealing. And now we gotta work on filling this line with water. Put the line in there. Cylinder is full and our line is filled. And again, in any hydraulic system, what the thing that you don't want is air to get in the system. So this is filled to the very tip of that line there. So now I need to grab the I5 cylinder. I need to make sure it's compressed all the way down before we connect this. Here's I5. And we're going to hook it up. And it might squirt a little bit trying to push this on here, as I figured. At least that's taking air out of the system by doing it this way. There. And now, that line is connected. So if this hydraulic system works right, this cylinder should pull in when I pull this out. And that's how the hydraulic system should work. It doesn't quite match the stroke of the cylinder because this can actually go further, because there's actually different sizes here. But it may be limited intentionally by the design. Well, I see a little bit of air in there. But we'll work that out later. But we at least know the system works. So let's continue on doing the rest of them. Well, here we've gotten the cylinders all connected up with fluid, and they all operate. That's the one that operates that plunger mechanism. The other one connected to it operates the rotation. And of course, all these other cylinders, once we work them out, all move various things in and out. We'll load it out. So anyway, now starts coming the assembly. I don't think we'll need the water anymore. And now that these levers are all assembled, the next bit, according to the manual, is our control module assembly, although I like how they spell it as module down there. A bit of a typo. We'll assemble that, and then once the control module is assembled, it looks like we'll get into doing the main hardware. So let's work on getting that together. Momentarily taking the camera off the tripod here to see the setup of this whole control scheme. Again, everything does work. Just takes a little while to get it all together. Get this part over here. And then this one. So now it's a matter of just attaching it to the arm. So there you have it. We have the OWI Hydraulic Arm Edge completed. And it took a little bit of doing because you got all these lines to route around here and getting the cylinders in the right spots and then binding the lines up. And they give you two of the clips for that. I chose just to have one because some lines are a little longer than others and whatnot. But does it work? Yes, it does. Here's your worm gear drive to rotate the arm. This one here, this lever, well, let me move this lever like that. That lever controls the hydraulic ram right here, which controls this pivot of the arm. So if we have it up like that, then we can control this ram here that controls this pivot section of the arm. Back and forth like that. And then this arm here controls this ram, which controls the other pivot point, which is right here. Giving you that degree of motion. And get it on frame of the camera. Keep the arm right there. And then the two levers that are on this side. This one controls the rotation of the arm, or should I say controls the rotation of the head, and the other one controls both the gripper and also your suction cup, because you can take these grippers off and use the suction cup to grab onto things like glass and other flat surfaces to suck them onto that. So now I guess I need to find something for it to try and grab. I wonder if I can grab this magnet. Of course, I put it in the field of the camera, that might help. So let's see if I can figure out all the controls here. Need to come over soon. And I need to rotate a little bit. Down a little more. Oh, other way. Oop, I need to come out. Getting there, getting there. we go. I got it now. Now to come up. And as you can see, I have grabbed that little magnetic clip. And if I want to drop it, just release it. So, there you go. Again, that is the OWI Hydraulic Arm Edge. The hydraulic version of the robotic arm edge that they've built a few years back. Before I completely finish up the video, some probably want to see the robotic arm edge next to the hydraulic arm edge here. And I can tell you visually the hydraulic arm edge is physically larger than the robotic arm edge is. But the robotic arm edge still works just fine. Batteries might be a little low on it. And it's also a little dirty, since I kind of just quickly dusted it off to put it here. Now, for a total build time on this hydraulic arm edge, I started it maybe around 9 o'clock this morning, maybe a little earlier than that, and it's 5:15 at night now. That gives you an idea how long the build time is on this hydraulic arm edge. But the hydraulic arm edge has pretty much about the same amount of degrees of freedom as the robotic arm edge does. And yeah, it does sound kind of low. But the one feature that the hydraulic arm edge has that the robotic arm does not have is this rotating head. It's kind of a nice thing that the hydraulic arm edge has, because there's no way to do that on the robotic arm edge here. So this is kind of convenient to grab items at a different orientation than just this fixed one that the robotic has. And also, I didn't show it on the hydraulic arm edge. Let me show it here real quick. Got all these little bits. But you might be wondering what the purpose of this extra cylinder is that's attached to the grabber there. If I zoom in on it, let's see if we can zoom in. To show you what this does. If there is any load on the suction cup or the grippers, you'll see that it comes out. And if I pull on these grippers, it'll come out more. Because the purpose of that is to act as pressure relief, so that you don't burst a line or anything like that with the gripper. That also keeps a steady pressure on the grippers, but it also lets you see how much resistance is there. So that's the purpose of that, if you're wondering what the whole point of that there is.